Check out that noise.
Bam! Oh,
Damn,
so
get a
good!
bill hook to the face. Bomb it down. I love the suddenness of that kill.
Me
It reminds
too.
me of the Crispin Glover kill in Friday 4.
Hey guys, my name's Dan, and today's reaction comes from Dead Meat. This is a Bay of Blood 1971 kill count. Now this is another older kill count for you, another one of the older ones that I haven't reacted to yet, and from what I've read, this is a very special one for me because this is supposed to be the very first slasher that was ever released, one that really pioneered everything, the one that Friday the 13th took a lot from, so you can think that entire franchise for this movie. Very curious to learn more about it and very curious to see what James thought about some of these kills. But before we get into it, please do check out all these links here. They're the best way to support me. And speaking of supporting anybody, go on over and support Dead Meat if you haven't already. I'll leave a link to his channel down in the description. And lastly, I did just hit 8,000 subscribers. Can't thank you guys enough for that. But I do want to continue to help this channel grow. So if you like Dead Meat, you like A Bay of Blood, you like horror movies in general, please go right below this video, click that like button, that subscribe button, and notification bell. And without any further ado, let's go.
Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies.
Ooh,
I'm James A.
like that
Janice,
blade.
and today we're looking at the 1971 Italian film, A Bay of Blood, aka Carnage, aka Bloodbath, aka, most awesomely, Twitch of the Death Nerve. A Bay of Blood is the closest thing to a proper giallo film we've had on the Kill Count. Pieces came close, but it was a bit too splat-tastic. And even though I kind of referred to Suspiria as a giallo when I covered it in 2018, it'd be more accurate to call that one a supernatural horror movie made by a giallo filmmaker. In that case, Dario Argento. Argento and countless others were highly inspired by the director of A Bay of Blood, Mario Bava, a filmmaker who was also a cinematographer and an effects artist, and who's been called the master of Italian horror. A Bay of Blood follows a contrived real estate plot with lots of greedy characters all killing each other for land. Horror fans who stick to American cinema may not have ever seen this movie, but they've undoubtedly seen its imitators. I consider A Bay of Blood the true progenitor of the slasher film, released years before the subgenre would come into its own. Specifically, Friday the 13th fans will see a lot of that franchise's DNA here. From the waterside setting to the occasionally first-person killer to a couple of kills that Jason would copy completely, though usually with less blood. Because that's the thing with A Bay of Blood. It lives up to its name. It is violent as all hell, and horny as a motherfucker too. Slasher fans seriously couldn't ask for a better movie. As someone who doesn't always love slashers, since the lazy ones can be brutal to watch, I enjoyed A Bay of Blood a lot more than I expected. In between all the kills and boobs, it's got beautiful cinematography, with rich colors and interesting shots that come courtesy of Bava's background as a photographer. It makes all the time between kills just as enjoyable as the slaughter, a rarity in lesser slashers. There are also some themes at play regarding human nature and the cycle of violence, but I'm sure a lot of you are mostly interested in the blood and boobs I mentioned. YouTube probably is too, so today's episode is sponsored to help me get away with showing you just a little bit more gore. Shudder is your one-stop shop for horror movie streaming, with a dizzying selection that includes A Bay of Blood. Ain't that convenient? What's great about Shudder is that you can tell it's made by movie lovers, which is why they have curated collections narrowed down from their huge library that you can stream on all your favorite devices. Oh, check that out. They've got one just for giallo films. Mario Bava would be proud. They also have their own original series, like Creepshow, which is currently in its second season and is the most watched series in Shudder's history. It's got episodes directed by horror masters such as Greg Nicotero and friend of the Dead Meat podcast, Joe Lynch. We love that guy. Shudder's only $5.99 a month or $56.99 a year, and you can try it for free for 30 days by going to shudder.com and using promo code DeadMeatJames. That's shudder.com, SHUDDER, promo code DeadMeatJames for a free 30-day trial. Now I've heard tell that this bay has got a whole lot of bodies in it. Y'all lucky I'm here, because it's my job to fish them out and count them up.
Alright, let's do this thing.
The movie begins on a bay,
A bay of blood.
The owner of the land around this Bay is the wheelchair-bound
Bay.
Countess Federica Donati. She's played by Isa Miranda, an international film star who was big in the 1930s, and boy does she love looking out at her bay. Brings a window-water tear to the eye, it does. I hope the Countess enjoyed her final view, because she suddenly finds an assailant in her midst who, with a rope and a kick, hangs her from her neck near the floor. Without her chair or the use of her legs, the Countess is unable to prevent a death by asphyxiation. Surprisingly for an Italian horror movie, we're shown who killed her right away. This murderous gent, her husband, Filippo Donati. So weird. Giallo films always have the murderer remain a mystery.
Wait for it.
Not sure why we're seeing
Wait
this.
for it.
Oh, because he
There
gets
it
killed
is.
too. Cool. He's stabbed to death and falls to the floor, dying as he stares up at his wife's hanging corpse. And his killer, the one who just dragged his body away, is the one who's gonna be a mystery. Got it. A lot of the film's first half follows a group of rowdy youths who drive all up into that bay looking like the cover of an early Beatles album. There's a French chick, a German chick, and two horny dudes set on banging them. That's all there is to them. They're just here
Pretty
to have
much,
sex
yeah.
and get killed. I
Yep.
cannot stress enough how much this is a proto Friday the 13th.
It really
But with
is.
way better cinematography. And no, I don't mean all the low angles on that obscenely short skirt, you perverts. Looking to
Yep.
spread their hormones everywhere, they break into an abandoned hotel and start dancing and panty flashing up a storm. German Brunhilde's into Bobby, but he can't really keep up with her free spirit energy. Meanwhile, Duke is, honestly dude, being way too aggro with the French Denise.
Little bit.
No wonder she ends up wanting to get with Bobby more.
It's Robert!
What do we need him for?
Come!
Get out of here, beat it!
Or hey, maybe she's just trying to see an Eiffel Tower. She is French after all. Left by her lonesome, Brunhilde heads to the bay so she can skinny dip in a shameless scene with a 70s softcore sounding score.
Yup.
During her lengthy soak, she discovers a very bloated and handsy dead body. She runs stark naked mad all the way back to the hotel for help, but the others are no longer there. They've since found the Countess's abandoned mansion, broken into it, and are having themselves a groovy time. God, I love a good conversation pit. And so the barely clothed woman has no one to help her when the first-person killer catches up and slits her throat with a billhook. Hacks
Damn.
away at it too, leaving a
Ugh.
frickin' trench in her neck. Great effects, but the best part about this kill is that the dying woman has time to rotate her bum towards the camera. Horny ass film. Bonk. Speaking of horniness,
even noticed
Duke
that.
has finally detwad his menage, so he's sexing it up with Denise on his own while Bobby reads a book and goes out of focus. Man, our first-person killer must have some bad eyesight, which is
Maybe.
probably why they knock into this pod and break it. Hey,
Oopsie.
Bobby, want to check out that noise?
Bam! Oh,
Damn,
so
get a
good.
bill hook to the face. Bobby down. I love the suddenness of that kill.
Me
It reminds
too.
me of the Crispin Glover kill in Friday 4. I also love that the movie revels in the special effects of the kill's after effects. That leaves only 2 horny teens left to kill, and they get got with
Oh,
a
yeah.
spear that goes straight through the both of them. In bed. This kill, of course, would be recreated
Sure.
in a much less explicit way in Friday the 13th Part 2. Like I said in the intro, I consider A Bay of Blood the first ever slasher film. Sure, Psycho changed what horror movies could be, and Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast had some respectable splatter. But A Bay of Blood might be the earliest film that made a priority of coming up with fun ways to kill its characters. For instance, co-writer Dardano Sacchetti, who had written Cat O' Nine Tails for Dario Argento, came up with the Countess's wheelchair hanging death, while Bava himself came up with the mid-coitus double spear kill. To execute the executions, Bava enlisted makeup artist Carol Rambaldi, who would go on to win 3 Oscars
Oh,
for his
nice.
work in special effects.
Okay.
For the 1976 King Kong, where he designed and engineered the giant ape, Alien, where he designed the xenomorph's mechanical head, and
Wow.
E.T. the extraterrestrial, where he designed frickin' E.T. the
That's
extraterrestrial.
amazing.
No wonder the kills in Bay look so damn good. In fact, this movie was such a graphic departure from Bava's earlier, more subdued work that Christopher Lee, who starred in Bava's 1963 The Whip and the Body, walked out of a screening of A Bay of Blood in disgust.
Wow.
Majestic music and sweeping landscape shots transition us out of the teen tourist slaughter scenes and into the murder mystery plot. This very confusing story involves the people who live around the bay, like psychic Anna Fasadi, played by Laura Betty, who made something of a career out of playing eccentric characters like this. In her tarot cards, Anna keeps seeing harbingers of doom for the Bay. But her warnings are ignored by her husband Paolo Fossati, an entomologist who talks to his bugs.
We can't understand anything, right, Ferdinando?
Ferdinando's the bug. Paolo's
Yeah.
been growing testy enough to murder his bugs, oh no! Because of his neighbor Frank Ventura, a real estate agent who wants to buy up the Bay and go all Danny DeVito on it.
I figured that in about 3 weeks we can start with the blasting.
All Frank needs to transform the Bay into dollars is to buy it from the Countess's heir, who inherited it after she and her husband were killed. Frank has to go get the heir's signature for the purchase, which means leaving the bed of Laura, his personal assistant and paramour. And do you know how hard it is to leave a pair of boobs that evoke piano music?
Fair point.
I think I saw a tear in his eye there. Frank isn't the only one interested in buying up the Bay. Another prospective owner is outsider Renata Donati, the estranged daughter of Filippo Donati, the guy who murdered his wife the Countess before being killed himself. Since Filippo's body was dragged away, he's only considered missing right now. And with no other bodies around hers, the Countess's death was ruled a suicide. It's a verdict that not everyone buys. Anna Fossati thinks it's bullshit and tells Renata to her face. She even mentions her correct theory that Renata's father killed his wife.
I really came to find out about my father's disappearance, not to hear moral judgment passed on him.
Renata is a strong lady, which is no surprise seeing as she's played by a Bond girl, the late Claudine Auger, who was Domino in Thunderball. Renata bullies around her much softer husband, a guy named Albert, who seems to be the more attentive parent to their 2 kids. They left them in a true knot cart before heading to the Bay. Don't want those kids swimming around in
A bay of blood.
During Renata's visit with the Fossatis, she discovers she's not next in line to inherit the Bay. Anna tells her that her stepmother, the Countess, had another heir, an illegitimate son.
Oh, he's a fellow who lives here in the shack on the bay.
That love shack living son of an affair is this fishing dude named Simon, a description that also applies to at least 3 Bible characters. Hell, Simon even says Bible-y things.
But if you kill for killing's sake, you become a monster.
It's Simon's scene with Paolo where the movie explores its central theme, the question of if senseless violence is inherent to human nature. This theme is best illustrated when Simon kills that squid by biting its head. But I didn't want to include that footage since, yeah, it's a real squid being killed. I've heard the old head bite is the most humane way to kill them, but still seems weird to me. Simon's existence comes as a surprise to Renata,
Hate knowing
and she
that.
quickly begins thinking of him in an inappropriately murdery way.
There's only one obstacle between us and that inheritance.
Huh?
Nothing.
Well, actually, Ren, there's another obstacle. Frank Ventura, who's just about done buying the Bay from Simon. Renata and Albert track down the heir and ask him where her missing father is. With the help of an octopus and a couple of crash zooms, they get their answer. Octopus love human. Octopus hug human. Renata gets ill seeing all this interspecies love, and Simon, who swears he only just found this body, tells them to take her nausea up to Frank Ventura's place. While Albert goes to get their car, Renata uses Frank Ventura's sink to splash some cold water on her face. It's here that she finds a bunch of dead teens
bodies
all huddled together against the wall. Now, we the audience still don't know who killed these kids, but Renata thinks it's Frank Ventura, a reasonable suspicion, given that she found them in his home. Also, he has an axe. She's unable to keep Frank behind a closed door, but she is able to use a pair of scissors to cut sharp glass and short screams. Frank is left on the floor with a wound in his leg, a scissor wound. And after Paolo discovers his body, he hurries through the woods hoping to get help. Albert also discovers Frank's body, which his wife Renata readily accepts responsibility for. She tells Albert to stop Paolo from telling anyone about the murder.
Hurry before he calls the police. Stop him before he ruins everything, Albert.
I can't just... How am I going to...
Go on, move!
Although she probably could have just killed Paolo herself with that death glare she got. God damn,
Sure.
girl! Albert complies and catches up with Paolo right as he's calling the police. He stops him from tattling by strangling him to death with the phone cord, a kill that leaves him out of focus right in front of the camera. The next person for Rennie and Al to worry about is Paolo's now widow, Anna, who's walking around living her best bitchin' witchin' life. She too finds Frank's body and its pocket wound, but before she can figure out what to do next, Renata Renata takes an axe and cuts her head off.
Ooh!
And what a beautiful match cut we get there, folks. Even if it's to a cheaply inserted scene that only serves as a reminder of Renata and Albert's kids. The married murderers reconvene, with Albert much more freaked out about his actions than his psychopathic spouse.
If you're such a coward as to want to dump the whole thing on my shoulders, go right ahead. But I have no intention of losing the bay right now, when it's ours.
The last thing they'll need to do to inherit the bay is to kill Simon, so let's get to it with some fun times drum times. Hell yeah. I love the weirdly cheery score by the late Stelvio Cipriani almost as much as I love Bava's cinematography. Bava had to serve as his own cinematographer, by the way, because this movie had that low a budget. In fact, they're not even filming in real woods here. They shot mostly around the beach house of producer Giuseppe Zacariello. Bava faked the forest, you see, by putting foliage in the foreground of the camera.
That's clever.
Simple, but effective. On their way to commit Simon's-side, Renata and Alfred see a red car drive by. It's Laura, Frank Ventura's confidant with the musical memories. She's here to check on Frank.
Yep.
She's one of those His Girl Friday types, and she finds him in his home, hurt but still alive. He sends her to Simon for help, since the two of them are business partners, but when she gets there, she finds Simon in a nasty mood, because he's figured something out about her and Frank.
You and Ventura convinced Donati to murder my mother.
Simon calls Laura every name in the book while accusing her of trying to marry his mother's husband. That would be Filippo Donati, of course, whom Simon casually admits to murdering.
You thought you could take my mother's place, didn't you?
No.
But I'm going to kill you like I did Donati.
I have nothing to do with it.
Now we're getting into twisty and turny territory, so a flashback tries to put some things in focus for us. Frank Ventura wanted to buy the bay from the Countess Donati, but she refused to sell it. She preferred to keep it in her family instead of letting him develop it. During the failed negotiations, Laura found and pocketed the Countess's diary. Later, she read it aloud to Frank, who became inspired after hearing a passage that ended with some dramatic romanticism.
Read that last part.
All is finished. Oh, dear death, come swiftly, come silently.
Since the Countess had penned a statement that suggested thoughts of suicide, Frank hatched a plan. Laura would seduce the Countess's husband, Filippo Donati, and with those musical boobs of hers, convince him to kill his wife. They'd leave the diary by her body so it would look like she killed herself, and then Filippo would inherit his wife's bay and be able to sell it to Frank. They didn't expect Simon to kill Filippo for murdering his mom, or for him to find out about the plot and get all pissed at Laura for her involvement. He attacks Laura and kills her with a strangling in the shack on the bed, watching her life fade away. Simon takes a post-murder
pretty
stroll,
good.
and we hear in an echoey voiceover that his Vic list is much longer than Filippo Donati and Laura. He's also responsible for killing the quartet of teens. He did so to cover up his earlier crime after Brunhilde saw Filippo Donati's handsy body. Not sure what to do after all that murder, Simon called Frank Ventura for help. In exchange for Simon's newly inherited bay, Frank agreed to help him flee the country and start a new life.
Tomorrow, then, you'll get your money as planned. Your tickets and your passport. Thank you.
Don't thank him too quickly, Simon,
Nope.
because you've still got to survive the night. And
Sure
thanks
do.
to Albert, that's not gonna happen.
No.
Albert kills Simon by pinning him against the side of his shack with a spear. It doesn't quite impress Renata, but at least he's not disappointing her for once. That'll do, Al.
That'll do.
Renata and Albert fish her father's body out of the bay. If she wants to inherit this place, they'll have to make sure he remains missing and that the Countess's death stays ruled as a suicide. They ransack Frank Ventura's place and look for the land contract, but right as Albert finds it, someone turns off the lights. Out of the darkness, Frank attacks Albert with a pair of scissors, and though it looks like he's able to stab him, to Renata's surprise, Albert emerges as the victor of the scuffle. I'm not positive that Frank Ventura was killed, since we didn't see it happen on screen,
Yeah.
but judging how my Rennie and Al have been operating, I think it's a safe assumption. The two of them burn
Yeah,
up
that's
Frank's
fair.
contract and celebrate their victory. The bay is theirs! They actually got away with it!
Mommy, Daddy!
Oh, what? Shit, never mind. Renata and Albert get gunned down at the 11th hour by their almost entirely forgotten kids, who begin a new cycle of violence without even knowing any better.
Gee, they're good at playing dead, aren't they?
The movie ends with the two killer kids running off together.
I was in such shock. I had no idea what I just saw because I thought that they were just going to win everything, blah blah blah, and then out of nowhere, bang! I thought maybe it was a BB gun. Oh, maybe they actually are playing, but no, they're actually dead. So freaking bizarre.
Play by the Bay.
The Bay of Blood.
A bay can hold a whole lot of blood. How
Sure
many
can.
bodies provided it? Let's find out by counting all the blood in the bay. How many kills did we get today?
It's got a good singing voice.
13 people died in a bay of blood, just like the title number of the series that would imitate it. The victims consisted of 6 women and 7 men, all of them pairs of lovers except for Simon, who died stag. With a breezy bay runtime of 84 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 6.46 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to the twofer of Denise and Duke. I like Anna's decapitation, but the double spear really sums up the sexiness and violence that these types of movies are known for. Plus, it got cribbed by a Jason movie. Talk about influential. Dome machete for lamest kill will go to Frank Ventura, probably stabbed in the dark by the previously meek man known as Albert. And that's it. A Bay of Blood came out in 1971 and might very well be my favorite Friday the 13th. Until next time, I'm James H. Deese. This has been the Kill Count.
Yeah, so this was pretty great to go back and watch. The story was pretty easy to follow. The kills were so good. Again, my favorite was the one what he took to the head because it was just so sudden, so graphic, and he just lingered on it for a little bit. It was really cool. Love the scenery. Love these characters outside of maybe the teens. Not really too much to them. But I also did love some of the camera work too because there would be shots to where they were really far away, but they were able to sort of like zoom in to where it looks like they're standing like literally right next to them. And for 1971, that's pretty damn good. If we're thinking about like how cameras were even used, like how I don't want to say fancy, but like how high tech they were at the time. Those shots I'll always marvel at. The whole zooming in and then zooming out in particular shots, but it wasn't really something that was overused either. It was really more to just sort of emphasize what exactly was happening at that point in time. So that's going to do it for me here. Comment down below. Let me know, what did you think about A Bay of Blood? Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. And lastly, please do remember to check all these links out, more specifically the Patreon one, that'll get you shout-outs like these. Luchador Cruising, Wolverine 310, Jordan Bird, Castor Cronage, Amber K, Raymond Bright, Chris Curtis, Jeremiah McCarroll, Jose Acevedo, and Peyton Thiel. And don't forget to click that subscribe button before you go. And I'll see you guys next time.